Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday and welcome back. Today, we're jumping into a very direct, absolutely no-nonsense explainer on WordPress authentication security. We are zeroing in on what actually stops a credential attack versus what just looks good on paper. So let's just dive right in because honestly, looking at the data, I've got some pretty strong opinions on this, and it's well past time we separated the reality from the theater.
Look, I'm just going to say it right out of the gate. A huge chunk of the most widely repeated WordPress security advice out there is completely useless. It's security theater. It sounds highly technical, but it's incredibly ineffective. And worse, it gives you this massive false sense of safety. So for this explainer, we are cutting out all the fluff. No more myths. We're strictly looking at what actually works, what absolutely doesn't, and exactly why.
Section 1. The actual threat model. Because to defend your system, your specific defenses have to match the specific attacks coming at you.
Okay, first up is brute force. You probably know this one. This is when automated bots relentlessly hammer your site, trying massive numbers of password combinations against a specific username. They're just guessing, over and over again, at lightning speed. To stop this kind of brute force noise, you really just need things like account lockouts, basic rate limiting, and incredibly strong passwords so they can't just easily guess their way in.
Then we have credential stuffing. Now, this is a vastly different beast. Attackers here are using leaked username and password combos from third-party data breaches, so they aren't guessing at all. They have real, valid credentials that worked on some other website. This is a massive problem because standard rate limiters completely fail here. Why? Because the attacker's stolen credential might actually work on their very first or second try.
And threat number 3 is phishing, tricking a site admin into entering their credentials on a fake look-like login page. The genuinely scary part here is that even some standard two-factor authentication apps can be bypassed. Sophisticated real-time phishing attacks can literally capture and replay your time-based one-time passwords, you know, those 6-digit codes on your phone, before they expire. User awareness and physical security keys are your main shields against that.
Section 2. Defenses that actually work. Let's look at the cold, hard, evidence-based controls that actually neutralize these threats.
Against credential stuffing, your absolute best shield is two-factor authentication using an authenticator app. This is hands down the single highest impact authentication control you can have for a WordPress site. It completely neutralizes credential stuffing because, think about it, even if an attacker has your breach password, it's totally useless without that time-limited, unstored code from your app.
Next up, how do we counter third-party data breaches? Simple. Password managers and unique passwords. If you're using a password manager to generate a complex, totally unique password just for your WordPress site, a breach on some random forum or completely different website literally cannot be weaponized against you. The attack just stops dead in its tracks.
To counter automated brute force attacks, we rely on login rate limiting. Now, we already established that rate limiting doesn't stop credential stuffing, right? But setting a temporary lockout after, say, 5 failed attempts makes pure guessing attacks entirely uneconomical for the attacker. It basically turns a quick automated sweep into a grueling, months-long grind. They usually just give up and move on. Finally, in our arsenal of things that actually work, we have pattern monitoring. Using tools like WordFence can alert you to highly unusual authentication activity. We're talking sudden spikes in failed attempts, or logins happening from weird locations at 3 in the morning. But remember, this is a detection control, not a preventative one. It doesn't magically stop the attack and alerts you that an attack is happening, giving you the critical time to respond before it succeeds.
Section 3. Security theater debunked. This is the stuff that gets constantly recommended, and honestly, it drives me a bit crazy.
First up, moving your login URL to a custom path. You see this advice everywhere. Instead of wp-login.php, you change it to something like /mycustomlogin. Sure, this reduces the automated noise from lazy bots checking the default path, but against a targeted credential stuffing campaign, it does absolutely next to nothing. An attacker will easily find your new path by inspecting the source code, or worse, they'll just bypass your fancy new login page entirely and authenticate straight through the REST API, WordPress's programmatic backdoor. So no, this is not an equivalent control to 2FA, not even close.
What about security questions? You know, mother's maiden name, name of your first pet. Using these for password recovery is dangerously weak. Why? Because the answers to these questions are almost always publicly available. Anyone can guess them with a quick 5-minute scroll through your social media profiles. Automated bots can literally scrape a lifetime of these quote-unquote secret answers from Facebook in seconds. If your site relies on this, your setup is way weaker than it appears. And then there's the classic change the default admin username advice. Okay, yes, changing the default admin username is genuinely useful. But if you just change it to your first name, which is publicly visible right there on your website's About page, you're making a marginal improvement at best. The crucial point here is to use an obscure username. Real security comes from true obscurity that actually can't be guessed.
Section 4, the application password attack surface. This is a massive blind spot for a lot of setups.
So what exactly are application passwords? Well, they're long-lived credentials built directly into WordPress, specifically so third-party tools and plugins can authenticate via the REST API. And here is the terrifying part. They bypass your login page entirely. That means your custom login URL, your login page rate limits, they do absolutely nothing here. And worse, by default, these long-lived credentials never expire.
This means if you delete a plugin, say an old WooCommerce integration, its application password might still just be sitting there, perfectly valid, just waiting to be exploited. You really need to check this today. It's incredibly simple. Just navigate to Users, click on your profile, scroll down to Application Passwords, and explicitly revoke any passwords for integrations you aren't using anymore. You have to close those backdoors.
Section 5. Your true security priority. Let's bring this all together.
Okay, if you're going to take a screenshot during this explainer, make it right now. This is your prioritized blueprint. At the absolute top, 2FA with an authenticator app, followed immediately by unique passwords from a password manager. Those two alone neutralize the most severe threats out there. After that, implement rate limiting to make brute force attacks uneconomical. Audit and revoke those unused application passwords, and monitor your traffic patterns. And way down at the bottom, sitting there as a distant, marginal effort, is moving your login URL. Honestly, don't even worry about that last step until you've fully locked down everything before it.
Which brings us to the most important question you need to ask yourself today. Are you stopping the actual attack, or are you just performing the appearance of security? True cybersecurity is never about fluff, and it's not about checking boxes that just make you feel good. It's about evidence-based controls that actually neutralize real-world threats. So stay informed, stay protected, and focus only on the stuff that matters. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.